It has been said that in Twilight Struggle, you need to know the cards well in order to play well. Well, we're going to take you through every card one by one, and we're going to help you become a master at Twilight Struggle. This is Legendary Tactics. This card is an interesting one. For the USSR, even though it is an early war card, it actually is much better as a late war event. And for the US, the sooner they trigger it, the better. Some subtle play will change the effect this card has on the game, but I will delve into more detail on the card first. Let's take a look at the event. Warsaw Pact Formed is a 3-op starred early war event for the USSR. If played for the event, the Soviet player can remove all US influence from up to 4 countries in Eastern Europe. Or, the USSR player can add 5 influence in Eastern Europe, no more than 2 per country. This event is also one of the prerequisite events that allows the US-NATO event to occur. The Soviet strategy for this card is pretty simple. There's no question that of the 2 options offered in this event, the first option is by far the best effect that this event can have. The fact that you can remove all US influence in Eastern Europe from 4 countries is an amazing and powerful effect. Please note that this event removes said influence even if the US controls the country in question. This is a massive event, like an American Truman Doctrine event card, only better. I have come across people in my research talking about being newer to the game and having as much as 15 influence wiped out in the late war by this single card. If there is a single moment when flipping a table is justified, this is it. The only thing is that the US player likely will not play much into Eastern Europe in the early war. This means that, even though it's listed as an early war event, it is much more powerful in the late war to offset inroads that the US can make with such American event cards as Solidarity, Chernobyl, John Paul II elected Pope, East European unrest, and Tear Down This Wall. So the USSR player is better off to play this card for ops in the early and mid-war, with the hope that it comes out in the last 3 turns of the game. In my research, I've come across instances where people have held on to this card from the early war just so they could play it in turn 7 or 8. This is a bit extreme, but there's no question that it is better to use it as late as possible in the game. Keep it in the deck as long as possible. You only get to use it once. The threat of it coming out at some point can act as a huge deterrent to an aggressive US player as well, who might otherwise try to make a grab for your Eastern European states. If you get the card after the turn 7 reshuffle, then hang on to it just in case as a defense against some of those mid and late war US cards mentioned earlier. If the US gets this card first and plays it, say, in the early war, then place the extra influence to bolster Poland and East Germany. And put the extra anywhere where it can give you control, like potentially Yugoslavia, where a standard Soviet setup will have an influence point, or maybe in Czechoslovakia, where it can potentially help against a late war realignment role in Europe. As the US player, if you draw this card in the early war or even in the mid-war, before you have started to heavily invest in Eastern Europe, count yourself lucky. Played early, the Soviet player will be forced to take the 5 influence, which doesn't do much for the USSR other than bolster some battlegrounds that were already under control and provide some influence that might be reassigned elsewhere with de-Stalinization. But even more importantly, it denies the USSR a great late war event that can be very damaging to your position. Not only that, playing the Warsaw Pact enables the NATO event, which protects countries where you have control from being realigned or having a coup, which helps to solidify your position in Europe. Another minor benefit is that it can give you more free influence with a play of independent reds, which can give you a further foothold in Eastern Europe, especially since your ambitions there will no longer be under threat from this event. So very simply, as the USSR, take this card for ops in the early war, play it for ops or hold on to it in the mid-war, and use the effect devastatingly in the late war. In the right circumstances, this is one of the better Soviet events in Twilight Struggle. As the US player, trigger the event as soon as you can and get this card out of the game. The event itself is actually pretty neutral as far as you're concerned, as it gives benefits to both sides, and you can certainly put those 3 ops to good use in the early war. This has been our analysis of Warsaw Pact Formed in the game Twilight Struggle. Thank you so much for watching. If you found value in this video, please like, please subscribe. And this is NATO from Legendary Tactics. Looking forward to seeing you next time.